Hey there everybody, welcome to Auto Bears, and this is the BYD Dolphin. Now, with more people buying electric vehicles, we're still seeing manufacturers building crossovers and SUVs because they feel that's what everybody wants. But for many years, the Ford Fiesta has been one of the best-selling cars in the UK and clearly shows there is a massive market for the small family hatchback that just needs to be electric. So it was really sad when Ford killed off the Fiesta and didn't replace it with an equivalent electric vehicle. But we have had small family hatchbacks that happen to be electric in the UK, and they have been very popular, from the Nissan Leaf to the Renault Zoe. However, the Renault Zoe has been axed, and the Nissan Leaf, although still available, will be returning for its third generation as a crossover. So in the meantime, if you do want an affordable family electric hatchback, you have to look at MG with the 4, and that is a brilliant electric vehicle, which is also great value for money. But now BYD have come into the UK with this, the Dolphin, their current smallest vehicle in the range, and they're looking to upset MG's dominance of this segment with the Dolphin. And I've had it for a week, and I'm going to answer two big questions. Number one, what is the Dolphin like? And number two, could this be possibly the best small electric family hatchback for your money? Stick with me to find out. Now, when it comes to the Dolphin styling, I actually think BYD have done a pretty good job with it. Now, firstly, when we look at the Dolphin's profile, you can see it's got this traditional boxy family hatchback shape to it, but you can tell it's an EV because of that short bonnet and the fact that the wheels are really pushed into the corners because there's no engine underneath. Now, when it comes to the styling throughout, at the front, it is a little bit distinctive, but I wouldn't say it was the best looking car in its segment, especially if you were to put it side by side with an MG4. But we have got this kind of cutesy front end, we've got the distinctive daytime running lights, and also this central DRL that comes on when the main headlights come on. So that's something that's quite unique, and again, it does make the Dolphin stand out. I do like this kind of pattern on the filled-in grille with the BYD badge that is replicated on the C-pillar. And then when we get to the back of the Dolphin, we do see a lot of style there. Now granted, the Build Your Dreams, which is underneath the Perspex, might not be to everyone's taste, and in fact I think BYD have learnt from this because we haven't seen it on their other cars, but it is something just to let you know what BYD stands for. Also, I do like the 17-inch alloy wheels. They are very distinctive and stylish, although a little bit of a bugger to clean. But the other thing I will mention is on this design, you can have the two-tone paint. So I have got the ski white along with the graphite grey. It is a really nice contrast, but there are some quite quirky colours available. Definitely pastel-esque, I will say, which is something you're not expecting on this type of car. But I definitely think it has the small family hatchback design sorted. But you let me know what you think of the Dolphin's exterior design in the comment section below. Do you prefer this to the MG4, or is there something else you prefer the look of? But you know what, I think that's enough of looking at the exterior of the Dolphin. I think it's time we see what it's like on the interior. Sat in the front of the Dolphin, you are greeted by a very comfortable, really well kitted out, and I'm going to say uniquely designed interior. This will definitely give the Peugeot E208 a run for its money. Now, some people may say it's a bit over-designed, a bit too fussy, but fair play to BYD, they've definitely put the effort in. Now, when it comes to getting in and out of the Dolphin, I will say with this being a small family hatchback, you do need to bend down in order to get into it. Now, the driver hasn't got a grab handle. That's actually my little glasses case, which is quite a unique place to put it. But my front passenger does have a grab handle. And then once you're sat in the driver's seat, you find that these seats are very comfortable. It's actually made with vegan leather, but it feels of a really good quality, and it does hold me in all the right places. I have got electric adjustment as well, and also for the front passenger, but I don't have electrically adjustable lumbar support. In fact, I have no adjustable lumbar support at all, which is a little bit disappointing. However, with the steering, I have got both rake and reach adjustment, so getting the ideal driving position is easy. And then when it comes to interior quality, I'm going to say it is pretty good, but when it comes to the hard plastics, there are quite a few varieties in here. So we've got this kind of textured hard plastic here on top of the dash, which is also on top of the door. We've got piano black plastic here to kind of brighten up and liven the cabin. We have got this Alcantara here on the center part of the dash and also on the door panel. We've got a different type of hard plastic here on the glove box, which is also here on the center console. We've got some plain black hard plastic here as well, and we then got some vegan leather again on the armrest and here on the door handles. So there is a nice kind of mixture of textures and materials here on offer, which is quite unique. But yeah, it does feel of a decent quality, and when you get in here, the only thing I would say is that it doesn't feel as spacious as some of its rivals because of this center console. So when I'm sat here, I do find that my legs, when they're kind of spread out, are kind of held by the center console and the door handle. So that's just something to be aware of there, especially if you're of a larger or taller size. But one thing I do like is with these one-piece seats is that the headrest does protrude, so I don't have to lean my head back too far in order to relax. So yeah, once you get yourself into the Dolphin's interior, it is very quirky, and I am impressed with the quality of the plastics on offer. Cubby spaces, I'm going to say, are actually pretty good and quite quirky as well. So the door pockets are of a decent size and shape. You can get a medium-sized bottle of drink in there, but they're not lined with any fabric, so loose items will rattle around a bit. Then we have got a little bit of space here on the right-hand side, which is perfect to perhaps put your wallet in, but I wouldn't put any loose change or keys in there because it is hard plastic and will make some noise. Now here on the center console, we have got 3 levels of storage. So on the top here we have got a little tray which is rubber lined, perfect to put your phone there, and then lower down we have got a lid which does reveal a bit of extra storage which isn't rubber lined, so just be wary if you put any loose items in there. But what I like is that you can actually close that, and you can actually put stuff on top as well, which is very unique and very handy. We have got a couple of cup holders which are of an okay size and shape, and they are quite deep. There's no plastic grippers to them, so if you do put something like a small can of energy drink, it might kind of roll around in there, so that's just something to be aware of. And then just behind there we have got your wireless charging pad, but I do believe on the lower trim levels that's just like a little tray area that you could perhaps put your phone. I will mention we have got 2 USB-C charging inputs and a 12-volt socket just behind the lid here, and it is a little bit awkward to see because of this row of buttons. And then underneath we have got another bit of storage because of this floating center console, and that is handy for any larger items, maybe a large bottle of drink or something down there. But again, it's not rubber lined or have any fabric, so loose items will make a bit of noise. And then finally we got the glove box, which I thought was going to be tiny, but it's actually of a decent size, and I got no book pack in there either, but again it's not lined with any fabric or rubber lined, so loose items will make some noise. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we have got your glasses case holder there up where there should be a grab handle, but that's actually quite unique because we have got the glass roof on this design trim. So yeah, when it comes to cubby spaces, I am actually pretty impressed. They are unique and quite quirky. Now, when it comes to physical buttons in here, I will be honest, they are very few and far between, but they're also quite quirky as well, particularly here on the center console. We've got these unique little kind of rocker switches, which operate some of the functions here, as well as the gear selector, but I do like the way it's positioned with a big park button on the edge. So these do things like your front demisting, you can turn on or off the air conditioning, put it into auto as well, and then you've got buttons for things like the drive mode select, your regen strength, and also if it's a bit slippy like with snow or ice, you can put it into that drive mode as well. The only thing I would say is that the build quality is not the best, as the buttons kind of rock around in their place there, so that's just something to be aware of, but they do work really well when you're driving along. We've got the same kind of buttons lower down for the auto hold for your electric handbrake and also the traction control. Now on the steering wheel on the left hand side, we have got your controls for the radar guided cruise control. We've got a button that twists the infotainment screen 90 degrees, so you can have either landscape or portrait. And then there's a button to turn on the 360 cameras. On the right hand side, we've got your media, communication and voice controls. We've also got controls for the little digital dashboard display to go through various menus, but to go through the trip computer and reset it, you then press the button on the edge of the indicator stalk. We then on the right hand side have some buttons to do the controlling of the wing mirrors and also of the windows, and we've got this unique little touch sensitive button here to open and close the blind for the panoramic glass roof. So that is actually really cool. So yeah, when it comes to the physical buttons here in the Dolphin, they're very few and far between. I do like the quirky design and how they're laid out, but I will just mention, yes, they just kind of rock around a bit in their slot. So the build quality is not the best there, but you know what? They all seem to work and do their job really well. And finally, we've got the infotainment system and the digital driver's display. So now there's a contrast of sizes here because the infotainment screen is 12.8 inches and the digital dashboard display is just 5. Now I'll talk about the digital dash first because, well, basically all your information is presented on there. In terms of its layout, it is quite easy to get used to, but you can get bombarded with a lot of information and it can take a little bit of time to get used to its positioning on the screen. And as I mentioned, you use the button and the little rocker switch on the right hand side of the steering wheel, as well as the little button on the edge of the indicator stalk. So yeah, just take a little bit of time getting used to how it's laid out. You can customize it and change it through the menu, and there's even a launch control setting where it goes all red and sporty, and you can do a 0 to 60 time if you so wish in your little electric family hatchback. And then we move on to the infotainment system. So as I said, it's a 12.8 inch display. You have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. And as I mentioned, on the flick of a button on the steering wheel or on the screen, you can rotate it to either portrait or landscape 90 degrees. So that is a bit of a gimmick, but you know what? Some people might want it in portrait, others in landscape. But I will say I think BYD prefer you to have it in landscape, because if you do have it in portrait mode and switch the car off, it will automatically go into landscape. So that's just something to be aware of, but it just returns to portrait once you get back into the car. Now in regards to how the infotainment system works, I'm going to say it's pretty good. Now it is very responsive, there's plenty of icons on screen. Again, it does take a bit of time to get used to, particularly with things like the dual zone climate control. So what I'd recommend is to do a setup before you set off. Get everything how you want it and then make your move. But I think the reason why it can be a little bit complicated to use is because BYD wants you to use the voice control functions. You can control a huge amount in the car simply using the voice controls, and they do get oddly specific as well. But yeah, in terms of the kind of reaction time and everything, it is very quick. It feels like an iPad. You have got kind of shortcut buttons as well. What I do like is when you have got Apple CarPlay on, that the shortcut buttons are on the right hand side and it does take up the whole screen. So yeah, it is a good system. I would say, yeah, spend some time with it. There is a lot to go through. And like I said, set it up how you want it before you set off. Or if you've got a passenger with you, let them kind of spend a bit of time going through it and you focus on driving. So yeah, when it comes to the interior of the Dolphin, I'm going to be honest, I do like the design. I've really come to get used to it. It's a really nice, comfortable place to be. I like the variety of hard and soft plastics in here. These seats are very lovely. And when it comes to storage, it is very quirky as well. So yeah, it's a really lovely place to be, but just be aware you can get bombarded with information on the digital dash, and also it can take a bit of time to get used to with the infotainment system. But on that note, I think it's time we leave the front of the Dolphin and we see what it's like for rear passengers. Sat in the back of the Dolphin, it is surprisingly comfortable and spacious back here. Now with this being a ground up EV, one of the highlights is that we have got a completely flat floor back here. Now just like the front, getting in and out of the Dolphin is pretty easy. You just have to bend in a little bit because it is a small family hatchback, but you have got grab handles here for rear passengers, which is very handy. Plus the doors do open pretty wide. And then that driver's seat is set to my driving position. I'm 5'7" tall and 5'7" wide. And as you can see, I've got a good amount of knee room. Unfortunately, I can't seem to get my feet underneath the driver's seat, so I will need him to raise that up if I do want to stretch out. And because of the sunroof, there is a little bit of a hump here as the blind rolls back. But if I sit up, there is actually a bit of a space here, so I don't find my head rubbing against the roof lining. So if you are around 6 foot tall, you might find yourself feeling ever so slightly cramped, but it should be fine for 2 medium-sized adults or 3 kids at a push. Now, speaking of kids, we got ISOFIX supports on the outer seats and also on the front passenger seat as well, so that is very handy. There are no plastic covers or anything. In fact, they're exposed ISOFIX bars, so it should make affixing a child's seat very easy. And then when it comes to storage space, it's actually not too bad. We got some decent sized door pockets, not lined with any fabric. We've got your aeroplane style pockets on the backs of the front seats, but we've got 2 additional smaller pockets as well, so they could be very handy perhaps for putting your mobile phone in. We then have a little kind of cup holder here in the center, and just below there we've got 2 USB-C charging inputs. We've also got your center armrest, which has a couple of extra cup holders as well, which surprisingly has some little kind of fixed plastic grippers, but it's also rubber lined. That is a pleasant surprise. I will mention that there's no through loading into the boot area, and it is a 60-40 split in the seats. And then we got the windows, which are of a really lovely square shape. They do allow a lot of light in. They are tinted on this design spec, and they do open all the way down, which is handy. And then when it comes to things like perceived quality, it is very much like the front. We have got that kind of faux suede effect here. We've got your hard scratchy plastics there as well, but a bit of leatherette, or vegan leather I should say, on the door handle. And also we've got the vegan leather here in the back. So yeah, it is surprisingly spacious and comfortable. I would like to be able to tuck my feet underneath the driver's seat, but that's only a minor niggle. But it's very handy when it comes to things like affixing a child's seat, and also the fact that you've got ISOFIX on the front passenger seat. So yeah, it's actually really nice back here, and I think it's now time we see what it's like in the boot. Opening the boot of the Dolphin will present you with 345 litres of space, which is not too bad for this segment of car. So it is more than the likes of the Aura 03 and Mini Cooper Electric, but it is behind the likes of the Nissan Leaf, MG4, or perhaps a Volkswagen ID3. And then when you got the boot open, you are greeted with a nice wide square load area. There is a bit of a bumper protruding out that you have to navigate over, and I do like the scuff plate as well. We've got this kind of unique pattern on there, and there is a tiny load lip to navigate over. So you could easily get a few carry-on cases in here, a few weekend bags, or a week's shopping, but you might struggle to get a large suitcase in here. Now you're probably thinking, Dave, that does not look like 345 litres, and you'll be correct, because we have to move on to the features in the boot. So we have got a couple of little netted areas on each side of the boot area. We've got some underfloor storage, which is perfect for your charging cables, and we've got a variable boot floor, which shows you that 345 litres. And that's about it. We got no tethering hooks, no 12-volt socket. It is quite limited to what you have in terms of features. Unfortunately, you can't put the parcel shelf underneath the boot floor if you want to load any large bulky items. But something I have found is that you could perhaps take the parcel shelf off and kind of slide it behind the seats, kind of like you can do in some of its kind of ICE rivals. I don't know if that is actually a proper feature or if BYD know you can do that, but if you want to load any kind of taller items into the boot area, you can do so. And then when it comes to putting the seats down, you can do it from the boot area. I am just going to quickly remove the parcel shelf, and you can do it from here. And one thing I do like is you have an almost completely flat load area. So it does mean if you need to load a bulky item into the back of the Dolphin, you can do so. Also on this specific car, I have got a rubber boot liner as well. So that's very handy if you perhaps got a small dog or something in the back of the car, or if you've got any kind of boots or anything from a walk you want to leave in there. So you can just hose that down afterwards. I will mention as well, even though this is a ground up EV, we don't have a frunk on the Dolphin. It's just a bit of extra empty space there, which is a little bit disappointing in this segment of car. But yeah, when it comes to the boot capacity, it's not too bad. It's not the biggest, it's not the smallest, but it should be quite usable. And like I said, unfortunately, it's just not exactly packing in features. But on that note, I think it's time we close down the boot, get the seats up, and take this Dolphin for a drive. So once you start driving the Dolphin, first impressions are actually very positive. It's a comfortable and very easy car to drive, and surprisingly, it feels very solid. I feel like I'm surrounded by a big hunk of metal, so it feels very safe. Now granted, that could be down to the fact that this weighs a smidge over 1,600 kilos, but to be fair, there aren't that many lightweight EVs out there. And just to let you know, this has got a 5-star Euro NCAP safety rating, so if safety is important to you, then this is definitely one car to look at. Now when it comes to visibility, I am going to say it's okay, because there are a couple of areas where some rivals have better all-round visibility. So when it comes to looking directly out front, it's absolutely fine. I've got a lovely view of the road ahead. Because this is a ground-up EV, it does mean that I cannot see or judge where the front of the car is, but all trim levels do get 360 cameras, so that will come in handy. Only higher up trim levels get parking sensors at the front. Then we got the A-pillars, which are quite thick and chunky, and on a couple of occasions I have had to look around them to kind of see what's in my blind spot there, so that's just something to let you know about. The wing mirrors are of a lovely shape and size. I have got blind spot monitoring as well, and you do get that standard again on all trim levels. Then when you look over your shoulder, you do find that the C-pillar is quite thick and chunky, but like I said, you have got blind spot monitoring. And then rear visibility, I'm going to say is okay. It is quite a narrow field of view out of the back of the car, and the only real kind of intrusion into your view is actually the middle headrest. That's the only thing that causes a bit of an obstruction there, but it's really not much of an issue. But yeah, once you start driving the Dolphin, you find it is very comfortable, very easy to drive. Yes, the A-pillars are quite thick, but you know what? It just feels surprisingly lovely. It's just a nice place to be once you get going. Now there are 4 trim levels to choose from in the Dolphin range, and they're basically split into 2 halves. So if you go for the entry level active or boost, you get the smaller battery, and if you go for the comfort and top of the range design, which is what I've got here, you get the larger battery. Now, when it comes to recommendations, what I would say is this. If you're looking at the Dolphin to be in your primary car, the only car you're going to basically have, go for the larger battery, but go for the comfort. Save yourself that little bit of money there, because you get the exact same range and performance as the top of the range design. But if you're looking at the Dolphin as, say, a second car to have, maybe a little runabout to go to the shops and back, or do little trips into town, then go for either the active or the boost with the smaller battery. But I'd recommend the boost, because you do get a boost in performance, although it does take a little bit of a hit when it comes to range. So that would be my recommendation. Now, I will be honest and say I do love this design, especially with this pan glass roof, because in all honesty, when you kind of hear about cars like this having a sunroof, it's usually just like a little thing here, but to have a whole glass pane for your roof is a big surprise, and I really do like it. It does allow a lot of light into the cabin, but like I said, you can save yourself a little bit of money and go for the comfort there, because it's really just more aesthetics with the design over the comfort and that glass roof. Now, when it comes to powering the Dolphin, as I mentioned, there are 2 battery sizes available depending on which trim level you go for. So if you go for the entry level active or boost, you get a 44.9 kilowatt hour battery. Now with the active, you get 93 brake horsepower, 118 newton meters of torque, and a 0 to 62 time of around 12.8 seconds. So it's not really the quickest, but you get a respectable 211 miles of range. Now if you go up to the boost, you do get a boost in performance. Power goes up to 175 brake horsepower and 260 newton meters of torque. 0 to 62 takes 7.5 seconds, and the range does take a little bit of a hit, and that drops down to around 193 miles. But then you can go for the top 2 trim levels, the comfort and design, and you get the larger 60.4 kilowatt hour battery, and performance is exactly the same regardless of which trim level you go for. So you get around 202 brake horsepower, 310 newton meters of torque, with a 0 to 62 time of around 7 seconds, which is actually pretty brisk. That is actually a good amount of performance to have on this type of car. And then when it comes to range, BYD say I should get up to 265 miles. And I do believe them, because every single time I've charged this car up, it's given me 265 miles of claimed range. Not only that, but once I start driving, it actually takes about 3 miles for it to drop on the gauge. That was something I was not expecting at all in this type of car. Now I will mention that the Dolphin does come with what they call a blade battery. Now it's a little bit kind of over my head, but basically it's a different design to how the battery is laid out. It makes it a bit more efficient when it comes to driving. Not only that, it's a bloody safe battery as well. Now I have actually seen what BYD have done in regards to their safety kind of tests on the battery, and they are phenomenal. They do kind of go through like the puncture test and such. They've even put cars through crashes in a controlled environment, but then what they do is they take the battery out and put it into another car, and it just drives off. So when it comes to safety, like I said earlier, this being a Euro 5-star NCAP car, BYD take it very seriously, and especially with this being an electric vehicle, because there is of course a lot of scaremongering when it comes to EVs and them catching fire or being involved in an accident. So it does kind of give you a nice warm sensation knowing that BYD take that kind of safety really seriously. So yeah, when it comes to the performance of this comfort and design trim, or the design I got now, it's absolutely lovely. I really do like the performance. There is a little bit of a hesitation when you put your foot down for it just to respond, but it's not really that bad. It is nice when you kind of put your foot down. But I will say, like with the smaller battery, go for that boost, go for that extra power and performance there. Yes, you're going to take a dip in range, but like I said, if you're going to go for that one, have that as your second car. But then again, if you just want to go for it due to cost, it shouldn't really worry you too much when it comes to range, because it should give you what BYD claim, and that is another positive. Now, when it comes to charging and brake regeneration, I'm going to say it's okay, but could do with some improving. Now, when it comes to the brake regen, you've got 3 levels to choose from, basically weak, normal and strong. And even in its strongest setting, I wouldn't call it one pedal driving. You do need to give some assistance with your right foot on the brake pedal. So that's something I find a little bit disappointing. I would like that brake regeneration to be stronger, or perhaps have the 3 levels and then it goes to a 4th level which simply says one pedal driving. Now, when it comes to charging, there are 2 charging rates, or max charging rates, depending on which battery you go for. So if you go for the smaller battery, you get a charging rate of 65 kilowatts. And if you go for the larger battery, it's a maximum of 88 kilowatts. Now, granted, that doesn't sound particularly good, but when it comes to kind of charging times, they're very similar. So to go from, I think it's 30 to 80% is around 29 minutes. So maybe say around 40 minutes or so if you're going to go from 10 to 80%. So if you are going to stop off at services, yeah, you might have your wee and a cup of tea, but you might need an extra cup of tea whilst this is charging up. But like I said, when it comes to that kind of efficiency, you shouldn't be disappointed with the BYD, because of the fact, like I said, I've charged this a couple of times and it's given me the exact same range both occasions, which is the maximum range that this car offers. I just find that to be very impressive. So yeah, some of the rivals out there have better brake regeneration and better charging speeds, but because of the type of car this is as well, being a small family car, mainly designed for, say, town and urban areas, yeah, I wasn't expecting great numbers, but to be fair, they should be fine when you're on a long journey and not take up too much extra time when you're charging. Now, when it comes to the Dolphin's ride and refinement, I am going to say it's pretty good. Now, when it comes to ride at low speed, it can be a little bit fidgety, especially when going over, say, a pothole or a manhole cover, but it does settle down, and I think that's just simply down to the Dolphin's extra weight being an EV. Yes, you can feel some of the bumps and imperfections come through into the cabin, but for the most part, you really don't, and these seats do a wonderful job of taking a lot of that vibration away. So when it comes to being, say, a long distance cruiser, it actually does a pretty good job. My first drive of the Dolphin was from Worcester to Lincoln. That took me around 3.5 to 4 hours, and I came out the other end not feeling worn out or tired. Okay, granted I was tired, it was a very long day, but I didn't feel as though this car was taking away some of my energy. I actually felt very happy and relaxed with it. So that was a great testament to the ride comfort of the car. Now, when it comes to refinement, I'm going to say this is a bit of a weak area on the Dolphin because it's not the most refined car. You do get some tyre roar coming into the cabin, but the main intrusion can be wind noise, particularly around the A-pillar. I will say today it is a little bit exaggerated due to the fact it's just a very windy day and it is a bit of a slab-sided car, so I can hear the wind kind of battering the side of it. So that's why you can tell that the Dolphin is really meant to be designed for town, urban environments, short journeys with the family, but the occasional long trip. If you want something that can deal with those longer journeys, I would recommend looking at the Atto 3 from BYD. But yeah, when it comes to actually what the Dolphin is designed for with these town drives and driving around urban environments and residential areas, it feels very much at home. It is very comfortable and very refined. But it is, yes, when you get up to those motorway speeds, that's where it starts to show some of its limitations. You get a little bit of tyre roar coming in, and like I said, that wind noise as well coming into the cabin. So what about the Dolphin's handling? Well, firstly, I do love the shape and size of the steering wheel. Feels lovely in my hands, and I love the quality of the leather and the stitching. But also, now that I got it in sport mode, it is very surprising. Now, it doesn't give you the kind of feedback that you get from something like a Cupra Born in the corners, but it's very responsive. I do pretty much know what the front wheels are doing, and the only trade-off, because of that ride comfort, is that there is a bit of roll and lean, but it's not that kind of car to be chucked in the corners with loads of aggression like a hot hatch. It is just a really nice responsive feel to the handling. So I'm just going to put that back into normal. Can just feel the steering there just soften up a little bit. There is actually, even in normal mode, a nice amount of weight in the steering. Again, I know what the front wheels are doing, but it is light enough as well to make parking an absolute doddle. And as I said, even if you go for one of the lower trim levels with the smaller battery, you get your 360 cameras as standard. So that is a big positive there. But yeah, when it comes to the whole package of the ride, refinement and the handling, it all works really well. And you can tell again that this is very much tailored to town and urban kind of environments and not long range driving. So this is perfect around town and will be perfect when driving around little residential areas and that. But like I said, as a long range cruiser, I would look at something else, maybe something like the Atto 3, or if you're looking at another brand, something like the MG4 perhaps. Now when it comes to highlights and little niggles in the Dolphin, I'm going to be honest, when it comes to niggles, they're very few and far between. Now the big one should be, because this is a Chinese car, and just like other Chinese, Japanese and Korean cars, when it comes to safety systems, I should get lots of bongs and intrusions into the cabin, especially if I go 1 mile an hour over the speed limit, or if I change speed zones and if I get a bong to let me know that one of the bongs isn't bonging. But no, there isn't in the Dolphin. But I know for a fact that before I got this car, there was an over-the-air update which basically solved that. So what I can say is, when it comes to the bongs and intrusions in the cabin of the Dolphin, well, they're not that intrusive at all. In fact, it's very subdued. If you go 1 mile an hour over the speed limit, you hear a faint bong in the background, but the big thing is you just get a giant warning triangle with an exclamation mark, and it just like screams speeding. That's pretty much it. So I really do like the fact that BYD have listened to their customers and they don't want all of those loud bongs coming into the cabin, especially if you go 1 mile an hour over the speed limit, or if you, like I just did there, strayed out of the lane. So that's one massive highlight. Now one other positive I have come across is that this car remembers the main settings for when you're driving. By that I mean your brake regeneration, what drive mode you're in, those kind of things. And that's something I really do like, because if you love to have your EV in the strongest brake regen, and say you got proper one pedal driving and you get into it and it automatically resets itself to 0, it's going to freak you out when you take your foot off the accelerator pedal, because the car's going to keep on going and it's not going to slow down. So that's something I really do like on the Dolphin. And something else I've noticed as well, which is perfect on a summer's day, but not necessarily on a day like today, is that when you get out of the car and you lock it, the actual screen closes up. So that's quite a cool feature as well. I was actually really impressed by that. But other than that, when it comes to niggles, I've got nothing. I pretty much have mentioned everything earlier on as I've gone through the review, but as I've been living with this throughout the week, no, I've been massively impressed by it. And on that note, I think it's time we move on to the conclusion. So what are my thoughts on the BYD Dolphin? Well, as an electric vehicle, I am massively impressed by it, by the efficiency, by the levels of standard equipment, and how it rides and drives. In terms of a small family hatchback, which should be basically spending most of its time around town and around residential areas, this is arguably the perfect EV for the job. The fact as well that BYD have been doing batteries for over 20 plus years shows they know their stuff, and that definitely came across when charging the Dolphin up to 100%. Now, yes, it's not perfect. I think practicality could be improved, definitely high speed, refinement and ride, but other than that, they've got themselves an absolute winner. And when it comes to things like value for money, this definitely hits the nail on the head, particularly with those lower trim levels. When that smaller battery, that is probably the recipe for the perfect urban electric vehicle. And I know there's going to be a lot of naysayers hating the fact that a Chinese brand is coming into the UK, but for how many years now has China been building pretty much everything we have in our household? So it was only a matter of time before it went on to cars, and this is a good car. You can't take anything away from it. Now, granted, yes, one of the things I can't answer is dependability, because BYD are a new brand to the UK, and the only thing I have seen on some of the kind of ownership forums and such is small kind of software niggles in the car. I've not seen many in terms of large issues, but as a small family electric hatchback, this is, I think, absolutely brilliant. And I'll tell you how much of a statement this has made with me. I can get a company car, a salary sacrifice car, and we are pushing for electric vehicles. I'm looking to get one of these. I am trying my best to get a boost spec car because I just want that little bit of extra performance, but I want to save myself a bit of money at the same time. So yeah, if you are after a small electric vehicle, this has to be on your list. This actually has to be quite high up, because I do think when compared to the likes of the MG4 and the Aura 03, I think I would definitely go for this. I've not mentioned the Mini Cooper. The reason being is that's a 3-door, and this, the Aura and the MG4 are all 5-door cars. And out of those three, I would have this. So everyone, I hope you've enjoyed my review of the new BYD Dolphin. As always, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell notifications icon to let you know when I, Dave the Auto Bear, will bring out a new video. If you've got any questions about the Dolphin and my time with it, please put them down in the comments section below. As always, don't forget to follow on social media. I'm on X, Instagram and Facebook for additional content. But I will wish you all a wonderful day, and I'll catch you all in the next video. So take care, everybody, and bye-bye.